I've become more interested in publishing some of my experiences on YouTube. So I guess a little introduction is worthwhile. I'm old, as you can tell from the picture. I'm 75. I'll be 76 in January, but in pretty good health. My life has been exceedingly interesting, part of which is reflected by the fact that I've moved 29 times, and that's after the Air Force. So most of my career was in computer programming. I was very lucky in that I got into what was the ground floor of that, back when you could make some decent money programming. But ultimately, those of us in our class worked ourselves out of a job. And part of that was due to the increased productivity afforded by advances in electronics and computers. When I first started, hardware resources were very limited. So we had to be very, very careful with our code and to do some things in the assembler. But now anybody who can point and click can create an application. It doesn't have to be very good or efficient, because the hardware overcomes that shortfall. Although it also means there's some really terrible applications out there. But anyway, I retired in 2005. My wife was ill for a number of years, Alzheimer's. But after 49 years of marriage, she passed away. So I've been struggling to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. And computer programming is not an option. I did enough of that already. And now I have a hard time understanding where the world's going in that regard. One of the things I did many, many years ago was to do some welding. That's when my wife and I were in the place I call Nowhere, Mexico, the middle of nowhere. And I had to do some welding to work on things like we had a 1965 Land Rover, the real deal. And that had a metal bottom or plate on the bottom so that you couldn't access any of the drivetrain from the bottom. It was done that way so it could go over really, truly rough terrain without breaking something. So anyway, the way the Land Rover was constructed, you could take the passenger and cargo section off piece by piece, and that you had to access the drivetrain from the top. And unfortunately, I had to pull out the transfer case on a 2 regular basis to replace O-rings. And to do that, I had to build an A-frame to hoist the thing out. And so that was the extent of my experience welding. And I did that with what we referred to back then as a cracker box or cracker jack welder. It was a 110 welder, had to use 1/16 inch rods because it didn't have the power to melt anything else. But anyway, I enjoyed it. I like to see metal melt, and I like to create things. One of the downsides of computer programming is once you've tested it and it's put live, you really lose track of what you've actually accomplished. Whereas when you build something in the physical world or a physical thing, there it is, you know, good, bad, or indifference, whatever, it's there. So anyway, recently, several months ago, I decided I was going to do some more welding. And I thought I would do some metal sculpture. So at any rate, that was sort of a rocky start because my mind was still back to the technology back in 1976. And I didn't research it enough to realize the great advances in technology in welding. So I bought a welder generator combination because I didn't want to have to rewire my area for 220. So, of course, it's got enough power, 200 amps, I could put together a battleship, I guess. But it's noisy. And I live in a 55 plus community. And you have to be cognizant of your neighbors. So that didn't work out too well. And so it's parked. So that was $1,400 that I could have saved. But anyway, I'm not going to get into all those details. I finally put together what I need: plasma cutter, welders, flux welder, compressor, pneumatic tools, you know, the whole 9 yards, drill press. So I'm all dressed up. I just need a place to go. My first attempt at metal sculpture is still in progress. I may do a little video on that. I may not really be an artist. So at any rate, that's who I am. That's where I came from. And there's several videos on my channel about my history, which you may or may not find interesting. But if you do, please subscribe so that you'll know when I add new stuff. Thank you very much.